In the heart of America, in a small rural community, occurred a crime which shocked the entire nation. A book about this crime by Truman Capote became a worldwide bestseller. Now, a motion picture brings this book to the screen. In Cold Blood.
She'd been shot in the back of the head with a shotgun held maybe 2 inches away. She was lying on her side, facing the wall. Her hands were tied behind her, and her ankles were roped together. The sheriff said, "Is this Nancy Clutter?" He'd never seen the child before, and I said, Yes, that's Nancy." That's where we found Mrs. Clutter, with her hands in front of her so that she looked as though she were praying, and in one hand she was gripping a handkerchief. Kenyon was over in a corner, lying on a couch. He was bound hand and foot, and finally tied to an arm of the couch. Well, I took one look at Mr. Clutter, and it was hard to look again. He'd been shot all right, the same as Kenyon, but with the gun held right in front of his face. But probably he was dead before he was shot, or anyway, dying, because his throat had been cut too. He had managed to break the cords binding his hands.
Church reminded him was whether you heard of the Clutter murders. I may have read something Hickok said. A vicious crime. Vicious, cowardly, and almost perfect, I said. But you made 2 mistakes, Dick. One was that you left a witness. A living witness. He'll testify in court. He'll stand in the witness box and tell a jury how Richard Hickok and Perry Smith bound and gagged and slaughtered 4 helpless people.
The door was unlocked, a side door. It took us into Mr. Clutter's office. Then we waited in the dark, listening, but the only sound was the wind. There was quite a little wind outside. It made the trees move, and you could hear the leaves. The one window was curtained with blinds, but moonlight was coming through. I closed the blinds. A man said, "Honey?" He'd been asleep, and he blinked and said, "Is that you, honey?" Dick asked him, "Are you Mr. Clutter?"
Hello, audience. Today I will be interviewing Truman Capote on his book, In Cold Blood. Let's get started. For our first question, I would like to ask, why did you choose the subject of the brutal murder for your novel?
I chose this subject because it was an event that had never been written about before, and I learned about it in the newspaper, and I decided that more people needed to understand it.
Thank you. How did writing In Cold Blood affect you personally?
Well, the details about that I had learned from the police and the townspeople disgusted me, and it's really sad that people are able to do that kind of thing to somebody.
All right, for our next question, I'd like to ask, how long did it take for you to get information from the townspeople?
It took about a month to get information from them that made sense. People were jumbled at first and nobody understood what had happened. So I had to wait and see how they processed it, but after a month I was getting information that made sense and added up.
So, what type of rhetorical strategies did you use to get your point across for your novel?
Well, the silver dollar represented symbolism, and it represented the senselessness of the murder because there was no point in the murder. Mexico represented everyone's unrealistic and shattered dreams because they had all these plans and they ended up dying. The tattoos represented an attempt to be evil for Dick, and for Perry it represented his evil capabilities. The murder scene had to have imagery because I needed to explain it so that people actually understood it. And then the beginning of the novel I used foreshadowing to understand what would happen later.
Okay. Do you have any interesting information that you'd like to share with our viewers today?
Well, it was a well-known national murder. It took me 7 years to write the book after the murder happened. And I was good friends with Harper Lee during it. And the Walker, there's another family in Florida that died that they thought Dick and Perry committed the murder of. But Dick and Perry disclosed that it was just copycats and it was not them. But we don't have answers.
Okay, so going back on what you said about Harper Lee and how you're friends with her, how did she contribute to the writing of In Cold Blood?
Oh, I love her so much. She went with me to Kansas and helped me for about 2 months of it. She went on some of the interviews and she always took her own notes, so I had multiple notes to use. And she helped a lot with communicating to the townspeople because she has better communication skills than I do.
Thank you. One more question. We've been taking questions from our audience. And the one question that we have is, do you think that In Cold Blood has assisted you in the writing of any other future novels?
Yes, In Cold Blood gave me the insight of how people think. And I realized that there's all these issues that people don't know about and that don't get written about because people just don't think it's important enough. So I think I'll focus more on real life events that have happened and affected people's lives.
All right, thank you. That was our last question, and thank you very much for enlightening us about In Cold Blood. So if you are interested in reading a riveting murder mystery, look up Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. Thank you for watching.
Camera's on.
Is that a random deer in the house? Nope. It's just me, Erica Akers.
But
The door is open. I repeat, the door is open. That was such a good one. Hold that. Okay. My lovely boy cat. I'm going hunting. What did they do with this? Let's flip it out. Let's flip it out.
it's fine. Oh. I can't do this. It's on my nose.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry with the fingers.
It has touched the nose.
It's
touched the tip.
Me too. Leela's going to hell.
You do look nice.
You look like you got mail out.
You literally look like a male.
And I hit on the ladies.
Yeah. No, Dick was the pervert.
Shoot,
Sorry.
that's right. I would not hit on the ladies.
I tried to rape them and you wouldn't let me.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's true.
poor Nancy. Wait, but you're Nancy and Dick.
I tried to rape myself. Oh.
You tried to rape Fancy?
I tried to
Don't
rape-
put that in because I don't understand.